Start with the adoption of the agenda, and Ms. Ziegler, are there any changes to the agenda?
1141 Shelton is off the agenda because the notification requirements were not met. 312 Broadway is off because they revised for an administrative permit. And 1401 4th Avenue North is off also because of notification requirements. So numbers 8, 18, and 19 are off today's agenda.
Okay. With those changes, is there a motion to approve? So moved. Thank you. Commissioner Price? Second. Second by Commissioner Cotton. All in favor? Okay, 4 concurring votes, that passes. Okay, number 2, adoption of February 21 and special called meeting 26 of February, the minutes of those. Any questions? Is there a motion to move? Move to adopt. Second by Commissioner Stewart. So that, any other comments? Okay. The motion, all in favor? Okay, none opposed. 4 concurring, that passes. Do we have any council members present? Okay, thank you. And before we do the consent, as chair courtesy to have some comments for this meeting. So if any of you have been following the process of BL 2025-742, if you have not, it's been voted by Metro Council last night to pass that bill. And specifically, it is to address this commission and the staff. So that's Metro Historic Zoning Commission and Metro Historic Zoning Commission staff. I don't know if the public knows, but through the last couple of weeks, it's become real clear on how the Metro Historic Commission department functions. There are 2 particular roles. The Metro Historic Commission does mostly education, and that's much more expansive than what I'm saying to you. And then there's the Metro Historic Zoning Commission, which is quasi-government. This is where we have the authority over the 35 historic neighborhood conservation overlays, and how the staff makes recommendations, and then we review them to either disapprove them or approve them. So that's some clarity on that. So that particular bill has moved the Metro Historic Zoning Staff and Commission to the Planning Commission Department. And that's going to be effective July the 1st of this year. There will be a 3-4 month transition time for that particular, all the mechanics of it, all the details of how that works will be quantified, qualified, confirmed between Planning Commission and the Metro Historic Zoning Commission. So that is significant in the way the public sees that. And also, if you have some questions, please refer that to our Metro Historic Zoning staff and our administrator, who is Robin Ziegler. Pretty much everything is on SharePoint. There's been public comments, there's been public records. Council also has quite a bit of information on Council Connect. So if you are not informed of that, please do so however you feel that you need to have that done. I want to open for the commissioners to have any comments at this time.
You know, this has been an incredibly difficult and divisive process that's had a lot of complexity with it. I would like to, though, inform people that are here that anything that's been done does not change the overlays. Your overlay is still intact. This commission is still appointed by the mayor and a separate commission that does not report to planning. The staff will report to planning, but not the commission. So as far as the process of permits and approvals, at this point in time, you shouldn't be affected by that.
Thank you. Okay. If there are no other comments, at the end of the agenda, we'll also have, and if you all had read that, there's a update on the report of the February Special Committee, which is also on SharePoint, so if you'd like to see those details. And I think that's it for now, okay? Thank you for giving that prelogue to our meeting, okay? As we move forward, thank you.
I'm going to read for you some information on appeals and permits. Pursuant to the provision of Section 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, notice is hereby given that a final hearing before this commission is appealable to the Chancery Court of Davidson County or the Circuit Court of Davidson County via statutory writ of cert. You are advised to seek your own independent legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements are met. You should also seek independent legal advice regarding the applicability of the writ of cert to the specific decision of the Historic Zoning Commission. If you are approved for a preservation permit today and you are not the contractor, please note that it is still your responsibility to make sure that the contractor has a copy of the preservation permit before beginning work. The preservation permit includes items that require final approval and inspection requirements. The approved drawings are a part of that preservation permit. Following the preservation permit will save you time and money, as enforcement of violations can sometimes be a lengthy and expensive process. The preservation permit is separate and not a building permit. No work can begin without the appropriate review and approval by the Metro Department of Codes Administration. Thank you. Thanks.
Next up is the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda. We will read each case out one by one. If you are in opposition to the project, please raise your hand when we call out the case that you want heard. Items removed from the consent agenda will be heard at the end of the agenda. So as I go through, if you want one pulled, just raise your hand and we will pull that case. The first case is 1001 West Eastland Avenue. This is new construction of an addition. Next, 400 Lachlan Drive, new construction of an addition. 404 Rudolph Avenue, new construction of an addition. 1141 Shelton has been removed. 2712 Sunset Place, new construction of an addition with a setback determination. 1015 South Douglas Avenue, new construction of an addition and an outbuilding. 3806 Princeton Avenue, new construction of an outbuilding. And 4207 Aberdeen Road, new construction of an addition. And I'll read through those again, just so everybody has a chance. Again, if you want any of these pulled from consent, raise your hand when it's called. 1001 West Eastland Avenue, that was new construction of an addition. 400 Lachlan Drive, new construction of an addition. 404 Rudolph Avenue, new construction, an addition. 1141 Shelton has been removed. 2712 Sunset Place, new construction of an addition with a setback determination. 1015 South Douglas Avenue, new construction of an addition and an outbuilding. 3806 Princeton Avenue, new construction, outbuilding. And 4207 Aberdeen Road, new construction of an addition. It's Staff recommends approval of the items on the consent agenda with the applicable conditions, finding that the applications meet the design guidelines of their respective overlays.
Thank you, Joseph. Okay, with that presented, is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Vice Chair? Second by Commissioner Commissioner Price, all in favor? Okay, 4 concurring votes. And the consent agenda is approved. Thank you.
Sorry for the delay. So next up is a revision to the Laughlin Springs East End design guidelines. And this is essentially changing the ability of what kind of infill is allowed primarily on South 10th and a couple of properties where South 10th intersects with Shelby. And because that whole stretch on that side of the street has nothing historic on it, we thought it lends itself to some different types of development, because obviously everything that you do in terms of infill is usually decided by the historic context. What is it in? And so since there isn't any historic context, we thought this would be a great opportunity for 3-story buildings with flat roofs, up to that, and with shorter front setbacks instead of the deep setbacks that are there now. And Councilmember Cap was going to be here, but I don't see him. But did you have any questions? We haven't received any public comment against the project. We haven't even received any questions about it.
Well, I tell you, thank you for sending that email from Brett Withers. That was helpful to know that it's been working on for a long time.
Yes.
And so I have no problem with the change.
Yeah, I think this is a great, well-done process to have updated these design guidelines. It shows how the commission is responsive to the community and changing needs of planning and density and housing in Nashville, and how an actual public process works versus what happened last night at council. So yeah, I think this is a good and necessary update on a couple of major arterial or feeder roads through one of our great overlays and where I happen to live. So I'm in support. Thank you.
Great. With that said, I will move for approval of the Laughlin Springs East End NCO overlay.
Can we hold on just a minute? I
Sure.
think we do open public hearing.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Like to open public hearing. If there is anyone to speak on that, or either way. Yes, please do. We always like to have public hearing.
So my name is James.
Turn your red button. It's the person. Sorry. It's the person talking.
There we go.
This is the red button.
Sorry.
I see. James Guthrie, 312 South 11th Street. So I back up to the parcels that would get the guidelines revised. I've been acting as the president of the East End Neighborhood Association, but this has really been just kind of independent neighbors working directly with council, starting under Councilmember Withers. So we had the first public meeting kind of related to this project back in summer of 2023. Is when the zoning changed, and I know that like the design is kind of separately your guys' purview, and specifically what we were trying to do with these is that there's already multifamily housing north on South 10th Street. If you think about close to Boomba's, closer to Woodland Street, Russell, it's already there, 3 stories, flat roofs, minimal setback. But this stretch goes all the way down to Shelby Avenue, where there's, again, no historic context, but the non-contributing context is very different. So it kind of seemed like this form that we're specifying in the guidelines would already be approvable under your guys' process and precedent you've already established. But it seemed like it would probably depend on the parcels developing north to south, one at a time, domino by domino. And at some point, those two kind of clashing styles would meet. So as a way to kind of eliminate that path dependency and make sure that the end result kind of fit the overall vision that the neighbors really wanted, that pattern that's already established at the north end of the street to be able to continue down. That was the goal. Thank you very much to Robin for working with us all along. Councilmember Cap kind of inherited that project and has guided it through. But we think that the recommendations now kind of meet that vision for what neighbors have been asking for all along, and that's kind of the genesis of this. So thank you very much. What's that?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, my name is Melina Springer. I'm at 411 South 10th Street, so I'm part of the homes that would be affected by this. I wanted to thank Robin and Councilmember Cap and Withers for their work throughout this. The last year and a half has actually been very easy. I'm an urban planner, so I've dealt with, how all of this can work, and it's been a very easy process to work through to get things done. My neighbors, it's during the workday, so they couldn't be here, but we've all been speaking about this, and we're excited about the changes and what it can mean for our block, because as Mr. Guthrie mentioned earlier, we don't really fit in with what's happening on the northern end of our block. Right now, it's single family mixed with HPR, like small homes on bigger lots. So it'll be nice to kind of fit into the context of what the rest of East Nashville looks like. So thank you all for this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We're going to note that Councilmember Cap is here, and we'd like to hear from you, sir. And while you're walking up, we want to thank your voice last night during the council meeting, and always appreciate what you do for your constituents and for protection of preservation overlays.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And it was nice to see many of you last night as well. Apologies for being a little bit late. I won't repeat what you've already heard, but I do want to speak a little bit to the community nature of this process. This was a completely community-driven process with two well-attended community meetings of almost 100% representation of the affected homes with near unanimous support of these changes. And so it's been a very affirming process in that sense. One other thing I'd like to add is that the proposed changes are in line with NDOT's plans for, and my, vision as well for what is eventually going to happen to the street of South 10th. I'm sure you're familiar with the spokes plan, but that's been in long development, and of course is very much aligned with the transit referendum that the city passed in November to change the streetscape of South 10th to pedestrianize it and make it multimodal, which is something that's badly lacking. When I say pedestrianize, I don't mean completely. I mean make it more friendly to pedestrians with wider sidewalks and street trees and bike lanes so that it can be a more neighborhood scaled street. And I think that this sort of a lower setback, more urban style development is appropriate on South 10th. And so I appreciate your consideration of it. And I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you have about the proposal.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you for your work.
Thank you all.
Honestly. And
My
it's
pleasure.
really nice to see that, you have 100%. It's sometimes rare for us to hear that there's, odds and ends, but you've been working hard at it and with also your prior council. So
It's certainly rare in this business, no question about
Yes.
it. But thank you all.
thank you. Appreciate it.
And thanks also to Ms. Siegler,
Yes.
who did a ton of work on this.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Anyone else? Okay. Appreciate the public comments. Thank you. We will close public hearing.
I would like to commend everyone that's been associated with this, not only Councilmember Cap, but Councilmember Withers, the neighborhood leadership and association, Ms. Ziegler and the historic zoning staff. To me, this is the way it's supposed to work. It's the way things are supposed to happen. It's a deliberate process. Everybody's notified. Everybody gets to sit down and work through the solutions and come up with that. And I think it is interesting that so many people thought that this whole thing with zoning, historic zoning, was about a wedge for the nest, Well, here, this has been going on long before Nest, as far as the starting of it, and the effect is to increase density within a historic neighborhood. I live in the historic Whitland area neighborhood. Right across the street from me is a 6-unit 1920s apartment building that's a beautiful addition to the street. And a lot of the houses there were built to house 2 to 3 families or more, with carriage houses and accessory structures. So I think that there is a way to have density within neighborhoods, and I applaud you for getting together, working together, and getting such consensus on that. Sounds like a great plan. Thank you. Okay.
Was that a motion?
This is appropriate for
Okay.
motion, so I'll move for approval.
Okay, that's a motion. Second by Commissioner Cotton. All in favor? Okay. 4 concurring votes, and that passes, and there you have it. So thank you, neighborhood. Appreciate it. Council member again.
Okay, first up under new business is 1706 Eastland. It's currently a vacant lot. You can see in the photo that there's an existing curb cut and driveway that the applicant proposes to retain. This lot was recently subdivided off the lot to the west, 1704 Eastland, so here is the subdivision plat. I'll just start with some context photos. The top photo is a streetscape showing kind of the, this block is interesting because the setbacks really do kind of stagger pretty in an extreme way. And so you can see that on the top side. The middle side is the historic house to the left of the site, and the bottom side is a historic house to the right. So it's in between a 1-story house and a 2-story house. And here are some images. The top one is kind of further down the block, and the other 2 are historic houses across the street. Here's the site plan. So the applicant is proposing an infill and outbuilding on this lot. There is an easement towards the back of the lot, which is kind of driving the location of the garage. That's to provide access from an alley that dead ends to the house next door at 1704. Here's the front facade. The infill is 1.5 stories in scale with a height of 28 feet from grade, and it's 37 feet 6 inches wide. Staff finds that this height and scale meet the context. The top is the left side elevation and the bottom is the rear elevation. It does kind of have this like long dormer, almost 2-story form on the left side. This is the side that faces the 2-story house, but also you can see that on the bottom, the rear elevation, that is inset pretty significantly from the side of the house and won't be that visible from the street. And here is the right side elevation. And here are the elevations for the outbuilding. And in conclusion, staff is recommending approval with our standard conditions. Happy to answer any questions, and I believe the applicant's here.
Thank you, Melissa. Not at the moment. Applicant, unless you want to speak or not speak. Up to you.
I'm Michael Marchetti, the architect, and I agree with everything Melissa said. It was hard to get there, and she's tough, but she's very nice about it when she finally beats in my thick head that those dormers need to sit back 2 feet and so forth. So I hope you'll approve it. The clients, who are both educators, it's like an act of Congress to get off apparently. So they are not here, but they love the house and love the neighborhood and hope you'll approve it. So thank you very much.
Mr. Marchetti, is this
Yes.
your first time?
No, I've been before you before.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you can see from my white hair, I've been around a while. So, yeah, I have. And I think she's helped before, and yeah, so I've
Great.
been around. Yeah.
Just thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, open public hearing. Sure.
Hello, Cameron Brewster. I'm actually the owner of the house next door, 1708 Eastland. So it's the 2-story old farmhouse next door. I had a question. I wasn't sure I wanted to understand a little bit more about the terrace that would be aligned right along our property line there and understand what that structure looks like. It was a little hard to tell from the drawings on that. what exactly is the
Yeah,
plan there.
you will address us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yep,
and then if you
apologies.
do have something afterwards, you're welcome to talk to him. But right now, if you want to have any comments to the commission, we would appreciate that.
Sure, apologies. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the terrace that's running along the side of the house, because it does run right up along the fence line there, and what that structure actually looks like. It's hard to see from the elevation plans there, because it's only in the aerial view of it. Yeah, there we go.
And say again, which side?
It's the terrace that goes along the, if you look at the bottom side of the plan there, it's along the left side of the house there, so the east property line there. That line there runs right along our property line, so I'm trying to understand what that structure looks like, so.
Okay.
Melissa, do we have any more renderings besides this?
Please put your,
Do we have any other renderings of it besides the plan view?
No, I don't believe it does appear in any of the drawings. The applicant might be the best person to speak, but it is, our assumption was that it was uncovered and maybe like a wall or, looks like there could be a fireplace, which is not something that we would typically review if it is a wall or a fence. And we, again, don't typically review terraces or, anything that's at grade patio without a cover over it.
since he has that question, I want to ask Lee, since we've closed public hearing, is it appropriate if you have usually said, can we have the applicant come back and explain?
I would welcome that applicant to come back
Okay,
and
we
explain.
need to vote on that. We do? Okay, come back. Okay, great. So we'll answer that question in a second. We'll have the applicant do that.
Okay.
Any other questions you have?
The only other question was, I just wanted to confirm that the height of I think I read that the height of the building is in line with the historic zoning. There wasn't any exceptions on that. Is that correct?
There's a full analysis in our staff recommendation, which I'm happy to send to you if you don't have.
Yeah.
But there is a variety of heights in the neighborhood. And staff did find that we thought was in keeping with what was in the immediate historic context. Your house is 2 stories and one is next door is 1 story. And so it's kind of in between those two.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Yeah, so that was my main question, is really understanding a bit more about what's going right along the property lines there, so. Okay,
Great, thank
Thank
you.
you.
And we'll bring up the applicant again,
okay,
please.
thank you.
Yep. Mr. Marchetti? I like to say that name, Mr. Marchetti.
Well, good. You pronounced it correctly, so that's the first. Yes, so that is strictly a terrace that comes out at grade level. We may end up stepping down just a hair. And along that fence line, since there's and I wanted to save those 2 large trees there, so we didn't push back anymore, is a grill area just up against that fence. I mean, so that'll be 3 foot tall. And then we're talking about a fireplace, but from what they've noted previously, they go, I don't know, that might be nice. So it may be just a fire pit. But essentially, for that 15 feet width there where that comes out towards the lower portion of the page where it says property line, that'll be just a grill area essentially. And that there's an existing 6-foot wooden fence. And I think we're planning on just to leave that alone. I don't even know whose that is, quite frankly. So I assume it's the guys, well, I don't know. I can't ask you. I don't know whose fence it is, so we don't want to tear anything down. I think the intent was to leave that and build around it.
Commissioners, any other questions? Okay.
All right,
Thank you, appreciate it. And again, neighbors, you can have conversation on. No. I have a nod from legal, no. So, and again, just encourage you to have conversation. Neighbors to neighbors are always good to have those things worked out. So we appreciate that collaboration as well. Thank you. I think I've already closed public hearing. Yes. Okay, and now I'll be under discussion.
Sure, and so maybe just to be clear, it's not something we would review anyway, correct?
Yeah, in conservation overlays like this one, we don't tend to review walls or fences or anything that's uncovered.
Okay.
You do or do not?
We do not.
Yeah.
Yes.
Clear.
I'll add that I think the The home design is really well done. I like the articulation of the dormers on this, on the sides, and it's well scaled for a pretty narrow lot. So I think it's a good design. I commend Mr. Marchetti and his clients on a good job and support the application.
Okay, give me a second. Gentlemen, I'm sorry. I know, you're welcome. Yeah, I know. You after the meeting. Thank you. Any other comments?
So it looks like everybody's in agreement, which is great, and so I make a motion to approve staff recommendations for 1706 Eastland Avenue.
Motion. Second, Commissioner Cotton. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? 4 concurring votes. That passes and is approved. Thank you.
Okay, next up is an application for an outbuilding at 122 South 12th Street, which is a contributing house in the Laughlin Springs East End Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay. The applicant is proposing a 2-story outbuilding behind a 2-story house. The ridge height is 25 feet and the wall heights are about 16 feet. The height and form meet the design guidelines. The plans indicate that the materials will match the addition on the house. The materials on the addition may not meet the design guidelines, so the final materials should be reviewed and approved by MHCC prior to purchase and installation. The proposed awnings do meet the design guidelines for add-ons. The lot is over 10,000 square feet, so the outbuilding can have a footprint with a maximum of 1,000 square feet. Additionally, a porch can be added along one side elevation. As long as that porch is 1 story and no deeper than 6 feet, it does not count towards the footprint. The proposed outbuilding has a footprint of 1,000 square feet plus a covered porch that is 10 feet deep. Staff recommends the depth of the porch be reduced to be no more than 6 feet so that it meets the design guidelines. The project does meet all setback requirements. Staff recommends approval of the proposed outbuilding with the following conditions. 1, the depth of the proposed porch shall be reduced to a maximum depth of 6 feet, and 2, the materials shall be reviewed. The applicant is here and would like to speak. If you have questions for me.
Thank you, Jenny. Applicant, please.
This is still red? Yes. Okay. I'll note that the last applicant was the architect, not the client. I'm the client and not the architect, which makes this just awesome for me. Thank you very much. My architects have been working with them for a while, and it's been a great process. I am here because I am hoping, my name is Will Gadara. I'm hoping to request an exception such that we can have the full 10 feet of the porch overhang. I'm very sensitive to the historic nature of this property. We bought it for that exact reason. This is a special property, the same architect as the Ryman. It's been a labor of love for us, for sure. And I feel like we are kind of the 4th or 5th custodian in a series of owners trying to bring this property back to its former glory. And so we do not take this lightly at all. I think our first submission was for a proposed carriage house at 1,400 square feet, and we're not trying to make waves at all. And so we have really reduced everything in exactly the way that it was recommended. I think it's just important to note that part of this project is we are removing a guest house on the property right now, which is about 913 square feet, in an effort to continue our pursuit of really restoring this property to its historic nature. The guest house that's there, I think there was a picture of it in this submission, but it was literally moved from Florida at some point 40 years ago and is wildly out of character with not only the home, but the neighborhood. I'm saying all that just because I don't want to come off as flippant that we don't care about this stuff. We actually deeply care. There's a lot of houses that would have been a lot easier to move into if we didn't. We just really think that this is a net benefit to the neighborhood and to the property, and we're hoping just for a bit more patio, just to have a little bit of a gathering. This will be hidden behind the fence line. And I guess I don't know what I can keep on saying about it, outside of the fact that we come hat in hand. We don't take this lightly. There's no expectations here. I understand it might not work out, but I'm hopeful with anyone in the neighborhood right now, I think would attest to the fact that we've already done quite a bit of work to kind of restore this in the right way. And we're just looking for a little bit of grace as we continue to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure. It's a beautiful house.
Thank you. Yeah, we love it. It's a pain in the neck, but we love it.
Open public hearing. Close public hearing?
And not to interrupt, I'm sorry, but you did get a couple letters of public comment on this.
Thank you for reminding me of that. We did have public comment. Jenny, just remind us
Yes.
in terms of the request to reduce to the 6 foot. Where in the guidelines can you help us out with that?
So the guidelines allow for a maximum footprint of 1,000 square feet for a lot above 10,000 square feet, which this one is. And then you have that section with the add-ons that we put in with the consolidation, where there are certain things you can add that don't count towards that footprint. So one of those things is a covered porch, which they're proposing here, but the guidelines say it can only be 6 feet deep, and they're asking for one that's 10 feet deep. So they're getting their 1,000 square feet that they're allowed, and then they're getting the add-on, and they're asking for extra depth on that add-on.
And then there's still the 20 foot between the,
Yes, they do have their 20 feet of separation.
okay?
If I may ask, I missed the public comment on this one. I must have checked too late. Were they in support?
Yes.
Okay.
Both of them.
Okay, thank you.
We'd have to look at it, but I think I remember one of them said that they didn't oppose this. They wanted the total square footage to be the same. They didn't object to a deeper porch if the interior space was reduced. Was that the one on this? Is that for this one? Was that the comment?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Jenny, in this case, that extra 4 feet extends toward the pool. That's interior to the lot.
That's right.
Not toward the street, and doesn't decrease the 20-foot required between the house. Right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Another question, it's covered, but is it fully, screened in? Is it screened?
Here it is on the screen. It's just open.
So that 10 foot would be open?
Correct.
And this is, if I recall, is this a house on the corner?
No, it's interior.
Okay.
I do. I really do have to appreciate people that consider themselves to be stewards of a historic home like this. And replacing I haven't seen what the old carriage house looked like or what that was, but I take it that it wasn't additive to the architectural expression of this house and site. And so I think that what they're proposing here is more appropriate for the scale and size of that house. I don't see that extending the porch in this location would jeopardize public safety or, be visible from the street or be detrimental to the development of this house.
Yeah, I think I agree with Vice Chair Stewart on this. I think the 6 foot guideline in the consolidated guidelines is a good guideline. In this case, based on the drawings and with the fact that it's going to be open, I am open to being persuaded by the applicant that it's minimal when it comes to add-ons and porches and things like this, especially when they're one story on a much larger structure, I'm more flexible than if it was some other structural piece that protruded more than this one. So I think I agree with you on this.
And also with the 20-foot. Sometimes we struggle with that.
Yeah, and it maintains setbacks and.
It maintains the
everything
setback.
else is on the interior part of the lot. And for it being a landmark, the landmark house that it is and the size of the lot, I'm okay with it.
Make a motion or
Well, just
comment?
a quick question, and so it could not be enclosed without coming back to the MHCC for approval, right?
They would need to pull a permit to enclose it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to make a motion.
Yes, please.
What's,
Yeah, it's a good question, though.
Yeah, thank you.
I do, yeah, let's make a note of that, I'm sure. Minutes will show that.
Yeah, with regard to 122 South 12th Street, I move for approval of the application with the exception of condition 1, but with all other conditions of the staff recommendation.
Can I add to that, too? That it's 10-foot.
Yes, that the depth of the projecting porch shall be allowed to be a maximum of 10 feet deep.
Motion? Second by Commissioner, Vice Chair. All in favor? Okay. 4 concurring votes, passes that. It's approved. Thank you. Thank you.
Am I allowed to say thank you loudly? I don't want to, I really do appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
All right, the next item on the agenda is 1524 Ferguson Avenue. So the 1500 block of Ferguson Avenue has a strong historic context of bungalows that were constructed from the early 1900s through the 1930s. The house on this property was constructed in around 1946 and is of the minimal traditional style. Since the house was constructed later than the predominant historic context on this block, and since the style, form, and detailing do not match the immediate historic context, staff finds that the house does not contribute to the historic context of the Belmont Hillsborough Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay, and that demolition can be appropriate here. So the proposed infill is oriented to Ferguson Avenue. The infill and outbuilding meet all setbacks. The site plan does include a 9-foot wide curb cut from Ferguson Avenue and a driveway that culminates in a front yard parking pad. The design guidelines state that generally curb cuts should not be added. In this case, there is rear alley access and there is no existing curb cut. Curb cuts and driveways from Ferguson Avenue are common on this block, likely due to significant changes in grade, especially on this block face. However, most driveways do extend at least to the midpoint of the houses. So while a curb cut and driveway could be appropriate for this lot, given the grade and the historic context, the commission has typically required new driveways to extend at least to the midpoint of the house. So in this case, the front yard parking pad does seem to be driven by there are these 2 single-story projections on the sides of the infill near the rear, which we will see on the front elevation. So the proposed infill is 1.5 stories with ridge and eave heights that are appropriate for the historic context. The infill is 35 feet wide at the front setback. It includes 2-foot wide projections that are along the side elevations closer to the rear that increases the overall width to 39 feet. So historic houses on similar size lots of similar form are between 29 feet and 35 feet wide. So with the inclusion of the single-story projections, the overall building width exceeds that. However, single-story projections on side elevations near the rear of the building can be appropriate, and the commission has approved them to exceed the building width just because with those bays and their location, you're not reading that additional width at the street. In this case, however, the additional width of the bays appear to result in the proposed front yard parking pad. So just a couple of suggestions. One would be to remove one bay, shift the building over to the minimum 5-foot side setback, which would allow for enough width in the other side yard to pull that driveway forward. Alternately, the curb cut and driveway could be removed, and vehicular access could be limited to the alley as well as on-street parking, which is currently used for the lot. So here is the right side elevation. You'll see here the significant drop in grade from the front to the rear. And the left side and the rear. The request also includes an outbuilding that's 1.5 stories, meets all design guidelines for the Belmont-Hillsborough overlay. And here's some context photos. So the photo at the top, on the far left side, you see the non-contributing house, and you see some contributing houses to the right. The lower two photos are houses across the street. And in conclusion, staff recommends approval of the project with the conditions seen on the screen, all except for number 2 regarding the front yard parking pad are standard conditions. So I'm here if you have questions.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm sure we might address some. Okay, so the applicant here. Okay, seeing not. Okay, we're going to open public hearing. We didn't have anything in SharePoint with any kind of public hearing on this, public comment. Okay. All right, we'll close public hearing. Discussion.
This is one of the things that we have consistently looked at is the parking in the front yard, and I don't remember a case of us approving parking in the front yard. So I don't see a compelling case for this, and I think Melissa's done a good job at trying to offer alternatives and suggestions as far as other ways to deal with that. So, and unless there are other comments, I'll go ahead with the motion. I move with respect to 1524 Ferguson Avenue that we approve the proposed demolition, infill, and outbuilding with the conditions as outlined in the staff report.
Motion. Second. Second by Commissioner Mayhaw. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? 4 concurring votes, and that motion passes.
Okay, next up is 1814 4th Avenue North. This building was constructed in 2004 and is therefore non-contributing. The house in October of 2024 suffered a pretty substantial fire, and MHCC staff issued a demolition permit for the structure. Here are some context photos. This is in Salem Town, and in Salem Town, the design guidelines allow infill to be up to 35 feet no matter the context, so just a reminder about that. On the top are non-contributing houses to the left. In the middle are the houses to the right. The house directly next door to the right also had some damage in that fire, is also non-contributing, but I don't think we've heard from that owner yet. And then the photo below are some houses across the street. Here is the site plan. The applicant is proposing a duplex infill with an outbuilding. The infill and outbuilding are meeting all the setbacks. And here are the elevation drawings for the infill. Again, the structure is 2 stories with a height of 32 feet 8 inches. Staff finds this to meet the design guidelines because the design guidelines for Salem Town allow for infill to be a maximum of 35 feet tall and 2-story, no matter the context. The proposed primary width of the infill is 35 feet wide at the front, but there are 2 1-story bays that bring the maximum width to 40 feet. This is in keeping with the design guidelines for Salem Town. And here are some perspective drawings of the infill. And here's the one-story outbuilding, which also meets all the design guidelines. And in conclusion, staff is recommending approval with our standard conditions.
Any questions to Melissa? Okay, thank you, Melissa. Applicant?
Hello, I'm Ian Lee. I'm the architect working with the applicant. Really no additional kind of comments. We've just been working with staff to make sure that kind of fits within the character of the neighborhood and scale. So, thanks.
Are you agreeable with the staff recommendation?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Open public hearing. Close public hearing.
Chair, with regards to 1814 4th Avenue North, I can make a motion that we approve with staff recommendations.
Motion.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Price. All in favor? Okay, 4 concurring votes, and that motion passes. Thank you. You're up, Ms. Ziegler.
Yes, sorry, I'm a little bit.
It's okay. Take your time.
So we don't have commissioner training. Someone was invited and did not respond, so I left it on just in case. They would respond later, but they did not. So next will be the rules of order and revision. And this suggested rule doesn't really change anything at all. Because as you can see, it's adding that a council member can bring a change to the guidelines to you, which already happens. You saw it just a few minutes ago. You saw it last month or month before last. But it does just provide some clarity. And so we recommend approval.
Thank you, Robin. Open public hearing. Oh, the applicant would be not really an applicant, right? There's not really an
You don't need public hearing for your rules.
Oh, you don't? Okay, cool. So I want to make sure, because sometimes legal will say open public hearing always, right? For good legal.
Yes.
Okay, confirmed. All right, any questions to staff or to Robin or a motion?
Looks pretty straightforward to me. I move for approval.
Okay, motion, second by Commissioner Mayhaw. All in favor? Okay, 4 concurring votes. I didn't see any opposed. That motion passes. Thank you.
And next is your report from the February committee.
Okay, I've asked Commissioner David Price to give us a update report.
Thank you, Chair. On February 26th, the special called committee of this commission met at the Midtown Hills Police Precinct on 12th Avenue South to discuss the bill 2025-742, I think it was, that was passed last night by Metro Council. We had another good spirited conversation. There was a wide range of opinions. I think that this bill came at us so fast, it was hard to keep up with issues at play and how it was going to work out. So we did our best as a commission to address those issues head on in the best way that we could. So there was a lot of good discussion. There were several people from the public who showed up and offered their comments as we had a pretty good, I felt like it was a good free-flowing conversation with the community who showed up there, heard a lot of different viewpoints, and shared our own opinions as commissioners. When it came to what sort of our statement was going to be to come out of that committee meeting, I'll just read through the bullet points that we selected, and the committee stated the following: that the Metro Historic Zoning Commission is not proposing amendments to Bill 742 beyond those already suggested by Councilmember Benedict. I believe that came out of discussion that at that point we weren't really, again, it was happening so fast, we weren't prepared to offer any amendments at the time. The goal and passion of the commission is to strengthen preservation in Nashville and Davidson County. that the commission is supportive of the autonomy of the Metro Historical Commission and its staff. And to put that in context, was supportive of removing the Metro Historical Commission from the bill as it was at that time proposed, which included removing both the MHC and MHZC from its current structure and putting it under the planning department, which did not happen. And a commission-wide agreement that the HDR, the commissioned HDR report done by the mayor's office and the planning department called Metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County Historic Zoning Review report was not well crafted, that it was flawed in facts and excluded a lot of voices that the commission serves, and importantly, that property owners have established the overlays we review. We agreed that it was unfortunate that the Metro Historical Commission department is in a situation of defending rather than having the time to thoughtfully react, but understands that actions must be taken quickly due to pending state legislation. That there are challenges to the city's growth that support coordination and conversations with other Metro departments and stakeholders. And that although BL 2025-742 is not something we would have chosen, it was the only available option in Nashville and Davidson County to make its own decisions regarding historic design review rather than be preempted by the state. Those are positions that the committee voiced. I happen not to agree with the last two of them, or three of them, but that's what was discussed. So the committee asked staff through Robin to send their comments to Metro Council, the mayor, vice mayor, and directors of the planning and historic departments, which I believe Robin did the following day.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yep.
Are there any other comments there?
I just have a question.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
In your opinion, the late amendment that was filed yesterday by the state.
Commissioner Mayhaw, can you speak into the mic?
I'm sorry?
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Okay. And that, you didn't think that they were, serious about that?
I actually didn't have time to look at it or read it before the commission meeting last night, or the council meeting.
All right.
You mean which amendment?
The amendment that removed historic zoning, period, from all communities over 256,000 residents.
Robin, do you remember that?
She's talking about the state legislation.
Yeah, that's state legislation.
It was a bill that was prepared yesterday in preparation if it didn't pass this.
Yeah, that came up so quickly. Do you have any other comments on that?
Yeah, I do. Commissioner Price, I appreciate your summary of the meeting. It was very thorough and reflective, not only of the findings that we had, but of the discussion, which was important. You know, it's interesting in this meeting because we spent the last few weeks dealing with something that was just opposite what we saw here in the room tonight, which was, you know, a well thought out, researched, well put together consensus, solution to problems and to circumstances that I think the whole community came out feeling better about what was happening in their community and accomplished so many objectives. And it's just so disappointing to see something different here with this process. And nobody's happy with the report. Nobody feels like the report was valid. Everybody knows the process was flawed. And the only thing good I can say out of all this is I think of all of us that have been involved with this, all of our passion is for preservation in the city. And that's what's motivated at least us and the people I've been working with on this.
I don't know if you answered. Did that help you out there,
Well,
Elizabeth?
he said he didn't have time to look at it, so
Yeah.
he wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, it came so fast.
I will say that in general, I won't get into the weeds on that bill, but I happen to agree with my council member, Clay Capp, who was here, and his words consistently on the floor of council that Metro Council should not, we as a city should not make policy based on fear of being blackmailed by the state. And he made a comment that really resonates with me, is that every lobbyist in town is watching. And now they've now learned that anything that they want to change, all they have to do is get a well-paid lobbying firm to place a threatening bill at the state, and the Metro Council will now act. And I just don't think that's a good way of making public policy. No. So I don't want to digress too much, because I think that was supposed to just submit.
No, it's good for discussion.
Okay.
Commissioner.
So yeah, I happen to agree with Councilmember Cap on that. Because we don't really know that the Broadway Entertainment Association is going to pull that bill.
No, we don't. We'll know at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, and we don't know that it ever would have gone anywhere in the legislature to begin with. It was all done under threat. And everything happened so fast. I just don't think it's a way to make good public policy. So.
I have a shiny happy comment. I really appreciated, I'll say when we walked into that special committee meeting and there were so many members of the public there, I was like, oh my gosh, we have to have a pretty hard discussion in front of folks. But I think what ended up happening with kind of the chair's guidance was a pretty robust discussion, which we never get to have really here. I mean, we carry on and have a conversation with applicants, but it's pretty rare we get to hear so openly from the general public. And so I thought
And actually, the lobbyist was there as well.
yeah, the dialogue, well, there was public there were developers there was a attorney for developers there who spoke. And I mean, it was just an interesting dialogue, one that we don't often get to have. And so I think we only operate within the confines of what we know here. We don't hear feedback from the general public generally. So I appreciated the people that were there from neighborhoods, I appreciate hearing from the lobbyist. I don't know what they think unless they tell us. So, I just really enjoyed the discussion. I don't know if there's any way to be able to have those more often, but I found it beneficial as a commission member to just sit and listen to what people thought. And in a way we don't get to on a monthly basis, I guess. We have great conversations, again, I think, with applicants and sometimes with council members. But I don't know, it was nice to hear from you.
I agree with larger, big picture policy discussion.
Right.
We don't get to, so that was helpful.
I think that, and you can comment, I also think in the temperature of where our nation is at, and to agree to disagree, come to the table and talk about things that aren't comfortable. I think that's part of my learning as well. Politics is not my appetite, but this commission has become brought into this politics. Let me say this as chair, and I've been debating on how to say it, because, as a chair, you want to think of that position as being a leader in how things go, and leaders are followers, and followers are leaders. That's how it works. And I appreciate David saying we were just thrown into it. Shortly after that HDR came out, we had to defend it. We had to defend ourselves. Because, and I wanted to say this last night, but I'm going to say it today because it's public and it's going to be recorded. The Metro Historic Commission Department was in disturbance for the last few weeks. And that HDR was an insult to the zoning commission staff. And honestly, it was an insult to us on how we disapproved or approved recommendations. I'm not saying them taking that personally. I'm just saying that whether people were focused on their own agenda, they didn't consider the humanity of it. And, when we debate for hours and give our commitment to preservation and how we hold the line for the design guidelines, I felt a little like I didn't do my job. I did not motivate the commission to have a stronger stance, if that makes sense to you all. I'm being transparent. So I think where the commission had these summaries that David just read, that's something we would have chosen. It is the only, it says that we would not have chosen it. Okay, I had to reread it again. So I'm not putting shade on the commission. I'm just saying that I felt a little bit responsible for not, again, you know, when you have this, because I think I've been thinking about it now for a couple weeks. So this is why when I made my stance, when Cyril made his stance, when David made his stance, those were personal stances of where we are with this situation. Because I think in this environment politically, people aren't doing that. So we have to be courageous in how we say the things that we feel. Our staff is stellar. And they didn't get that. And so I wish that I had said more of that last night. But, you know, 2 minutes was a quick, yeah, it's a two minute drill. I did send my comments to the council, my full script, to the mayor's office as well. So my short sentences where I had just a minute to say it, and hopefully there was time, because, you know, the constituents, the people that talked, had it. They gave what was truth. And sometimes I feel those are just an exercise, but it's an exercise, it's a democratic exercise to where people can express what they feel and not just feel, but how they see things and how it's run and how the functions are. I may not say this too much longer, but the thing about this commission, and I want to say this whether I'm on it or not on it, is that holding the line to those things that will not give way to diminishing the design guidelines, not compromise it, and to a point where that overlay will be removed. This could go down a rabbit hole. We don't know. We don't know what's happening. You're going to have a different director who has control, okay? Complete control over not just the staff, but this commission. You might say that, and I disagree, Cyril, to say things will stay forever. That doesn't happen. Change is always constant. My mother used to tell me that all the time. Change is always constant. So we need to accept some of those things. I don't know if you all know about, I'm kind of getting personal, so thank you for allowing this, and I know, yeah, it's been hard because I've also been doing double duty with MHC and MHCC. And so I've seen a lot of the processing, and it hasn't been a pretty sight. And some of you have done the same. Cyril, you've been this with Preservation Society of Nashville. So, there's lots of forces that have brought their collaborative wisdom to the table. Who knows what other forces are there underneath? And but I just want to say that staff, continue to do what you do. Continue to follow the guidelines. Continue to talk to the applicants. That's where the work shows up. That's where the work shows up. And then we just review it. So they make our job easier or smoother, or that we understand it better. So they've not been given enough credit.
No, and in fact, they've been profoundly insulted and slapped in the face by Emily Benedict.
Thank you.
In a totally inappropriate way.
Yes,
I've said it multiple times. I've said it to her. I said it on the floor of council last night. I think this whole process was a complete failure of political leadership from Mayor O'Connell's office on down. was not handled in a democratic manner. It was done in backroom deals with, between mayor and the planning department to create a report with a predetermined outcome. And then it was, they managed to find a willing accomplice at council to rush it through before anybody knew what was really going on, to deny the public the ability to comment on it until third reading. It's a total travesty, I think. And I will continue on this commission to ensure that the planning department, staff, leadership does not water down the guidelines or how this commission works. I have several more years left and in my appointment. And it was clear last night that this bill was passed in order to weaken historic preservation guidelines and overlays in Nashville. That was the stated intent of the Broadway Entertainment Association.
Yes.
And that goes counter to regular grassroots Nashvillians who've spent decades putting these overlays into place and doing the real grassroots collaborative democratic work to get these things into place. And last night, I think, made a mockery of the whole process. So I've gone on a lot. I'm clearly on record where I stand with this, and I don't feel like I need to say more. But
Ditto.
That's where I am.
We need to move forward on this unless you all have other comments. The next on the agenda is creation.
I do have one more.
Yeah, sorry.
You know, I agree with almost everything I've heard here. And, you know, this has been, like so often happens in the South, a terrible storm that's blown through and created damage and suffering and all sorts of discomfort. The only thing that has encouraged me through this thing is seeing the passion of Nashvillians for historic preservation. If you look at the number of people that showed up, not only last night, but throughout this process, that's more attention to historic preservation than I've ever seen in this city. So I'm optimistic that if we, like Commissioner Price said, continue to work on process to keep the process as it is. Right now, the overlays are not only adopted, but they're expanded and they're modified by starting with the council person and the neighbors working together. Then they come to this body, they go to the planning commission, and then they go to the council. So my sense is nothing about what happened last night instantly changes the overlay or that process. And so even for Lower Broadway. And so to me, that's my only hope, is that we can keep those processes intact and with integrity. And I think this body is one that will bear a fair amount of responsibility for doing that. So I'm encouraged by that. And I'm hopeful that this passion for preservation will not die because of the bitter feelings, but that people that showed up last night will continue to show up and make preservation stronger than it has been throughout the county. Yeah.
Thank you. Also, I ended up talking to a couple of council members, and the comment is they will be watching this for the next couple of years. So that gives me some hope as well, a shimmer, that because they voted on it, that they will be looking at oversight. And I do challenge them for that. I think I did that last night. So anyway, anyone else?
Just real quick, I think it's a be careful what you ask for thing as well, because this commission's not changing. We've stood firm every month to protect these guidelines. And I hope we continue to do that. And I think we will.
I do too.
Yeah, I ran out of time last night, quick 2 minutes. My fear long-term, though, is how the commission appointment process and recommendation process works, which Director Walker has a lot of influence over commissioner appointments. And I fear that with that power now being vested in the planning director, that we'll see commissioner appointments long-term that favor development over preservation.
I thought it continued with the mayor continuing to appoint us.
The mayor appoints, but Director Walker has a lot of influence and recommendations of
Yes,
who would fit
absolutely.
the commission. Doesn't always go his way, but it is
It's strong.
a strong influence.
It is a
yes.
strong influence. Thank you for reminding me of that, because the way I'm on this board is because I'm a representative of the Metro Historic Commission. So the Metro Historic Commission, by code, I believe, or the ordinance, is that there shall be a representative to the MACC. So that gives the Metro Historic Commission that authority to assign at least one to the commission, just like planning. Yeah. So there's that, you know. Anyway, commissioners, you all do an amazing job. I tell you that all the time. You know, and you're going to hold, we have difference of opinions, and we've agreed to disagree. You know, David and I were talking last night that, you know, prior to this, we've been a pretty much united commission. We think, we're wise, we discern, we make decisions that are, you know, guidelines. That's why we're on the block, because people think that we're not making the right decisions. Some of them, they're selective. So, but again, I continue to say that this commission does a good job, stellar. So,
I'll add a little bit more too.
Yes, please.
I also am going to challenge myself to just come to acceptance of what happened last night, because it did, and we can't change anything about it now. So I'm really interested to see what happens with the development of the MOU between Metro Historic Zoning Commission and the Planning Department, and be around to advocate for the Historic Zoning Commission staff in that process as best as I can, and move on and continue to do, you know, the hard work that we do every month with the cooperation and wonderful communication and that I think we have. So I think it's also time to move on and pick up the pieces as best we can.
Can we move on to the next? Okay, Robin.
That was the perfect segue.
Thank you. Yes, creation of a transition committee. So the Metro Historic Commission has appointed 3, and it's actually the executive committee, to do the review of the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, for the public to understand what that means. And it's Chair Wynn, Vice Chair Roast, and myself as the chair. Actually, it's not because of the chair, it's because I'm, according to rules and the working ordinance, is that the MHCC rep is on the executive committee. So I will be on that committee. And then today, by rules of order, section 3.A, the chair has the authority to appoint a committee. And the committee's purpose is to review the MOU, specifically between the planning department. Right now, I'm not sure if it's the Metro Historic Commission and or MHCC. Legal, do you have any comment on that?
On the title?
Yeah.
I can't recall if it specified if there was going to be a title change in the ordinance. I don't think so. I don't think there would be a title change.
Okay.
Because
It'll
under
be
state law,
title-
you're called.
Yeah, it's under Title 17 or no, I don't know.
16, yeah. I think it's under Title 16.
Okay.
I'll verify though.
But that's, while you're doing that, that's the goal.
Can I ask a follow-up? That's a good question, because it made me think. So we have the authority to review the memorandum of agreement? What does that mean? Does that
I don't know
mean
if there's an authority, it was just an agreement.
an agreement? Do we just have review and comment, and that's it? Or do we have the ability to insert?
David, those are good questions.
Yeah.
However, this
We
is
don't
the
know.
first round.
Okay.
And so what we're doing is appointing a committee so we're going to do a joint committee meeting with MHC, because that's concerted efforts. We look to see broadly how this is going to affect, because it's going to affect MHC as well. Okay, we've been co-co, for 50 years or whatever it is.
May I ask our legal representative here today? I'm sorry, I know Ann, but I didn't catch your name really.
It's Tara Ladd. It's actually under Title 17, so you're right, and I was wrong. So I'd
Okay.
like to make sure I say when I'm wrong.
All right.
You're
I
not
was wrong.
We're just looking it up, Tara.
No, thank you, Tara.
Yeah.
Can you, I'm familiar in my professional world, I work on memoranda of agreement a lot, which is a legally binding document signed by various signatories. Can you, under Metro, in the agency-to-agency memorandum of understanding, can you explain what kind of weight, what sort of teeth? Is it a legally binding document? What are we going to be working on?
Good question.
So I want to speak generally because I'm not aware of how this is going to play out or what it looks like. And I want to be forthcoming with that before I explain what an MOU typically does. But an MOU is typically a non-binding agreement between departments. It's an aspirational agreement, but it's obviously typically between department heads or departments. And so it's followed. But it's not something that requires a council approval because again, it's going to be between two Metro departments. You're not going to council to ask can Metro contract with itself. So we typically preserve these. We typically in legal use these types of agreements for where there is similar to this, where there's an agreement between two departments to change personnel. So for instance, when Waste Services was transferred to Metro Water Services, we used an MOU to transfer those employees of Waste from Public Works to Metro Water Services, and it was an extremely lengthy document. That one actually ended up going to council, but that's sort of a side story. So there's a robust history for us using that kind of document in this kind of situation, and sometimes it's just as small as who is going to maintain the right-of-way in front of the Nashville Library, and sometimes it's like this, how the finance piece is going to work for new employees, where the new employee is going to go, whose budget is it going to come out of, and then you see a more robust, longer document. But to your point, those are typically considered non-binding agreements. Yep.
With that said, with this, this came out of Metro Historic Commission meeting on Monday, so there are things that we probably had talked about in the previous whatever, but today I'm going to appoint to this MOU committee with the joint MHC is David Price and Beth Cashin. So there'll be 5. And that doesn't need a vote. It's just the way it is. So, anything else on that? So we will know when that's scheduled. I'm sure it'll come from the office admin. We'll figure out what timing that's going to be. Yeah. So we'll wait on that. I mean, it's new ground. So we'll just see how it goes, and we're all going to learn a lot from this process. Robin?
Yes, I have a couple of more housekeeping things. Giving you a heads up. The July meeting will be at Bransford again in Berry Hill because, good news, they're putting in a whole new audio system for this room. So it's a good reason we're having to move. We also changed our general email address to Historic Zoning. It was Historical Commission, but this way Historical Commission gets to keep theirs and we get our own, and that's the email that we encourage people to use to send in their application information, to request inspections, that type of thing. And I wanted to give you a heads up that next month you will be voting on your leadership award that we do every May. So I will read that to you just to refresh your memory on what it is. So each May, the MHCC honors a neighborhood association, merchants association, or individual that has, through their leadership, made outstanding contributions to their community and worked towards preservation and education regarding the history of their neighborhood or district. The winners of this recognition inspire others to take action in their communities. Characteristics of a leadership recognition honor include provided protection for the important historic resources of their neighborhood, provided education of the history of their neighborhood through events or publications or neighborhood features, understands how to help move change forward that is respectful to the historic character of the neighborhood through effective communication and participation, has improved neighborhood participation and inclusion, created valuable links or improved communication and processes between the neighborhood and Metro government. Government employees and volunteers and elected officials don't qualify because, again, the purpose of this is to recognize, to honor grassroots efforts towards preservation. Specific rehab projects also do not qualify, as there is an entire other award program to honor those projects. So if you have any ideas, feel free to email them to me in advance, bring them to the meeting next month. If anyone's listening and wants to actually apply, email me. There's not a real formal process, just answer how you meet these qualifications. And then next month, you will decide who receives that honor, and then you will present that to them in May.
So we need to have a final answer.
Right.
Okay. So we need.
Okay. Just a second.
So she's just gonna pick.
Anything else? Any other comments, commissioners? Okay, we shall adjourn. Okay, thank you very much, all. Okay.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.